she thick. Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I have sat down and filmed a full face using products under $10, or at least $10 being the max. And for everyone who just loves my drugstore videos, this one's for you, truly. And the goal with today's video is basically to show you that you can get a high quality, makeup look using affordable products, which we all love. So if that's something you're into and you're new here, definitely make sure you subscribe for more and hit the little bell so you can be notified every time that I upload. My upload schedule is every Wednesday and Friday, just in case you forgot. But with all of that, we are gonna jump into today's tutorial. I hope you guys love it. You can leave your feedback in the comments always, and let's just get into it. Alright, so today we are going to start with the eyeshadow. Now my eyes are already primed and set with some translucent powder. I'm not going to mention the products just because they aren't $10 or less, but the eyeshadows are for sure. Now I pulled out this palette, the Profusion's Chocolates. Now this has a beautiful arrangement of shadows, very neutral and everyday wearable, aside from the green, but the green is pretty cute. I think I used it in a video before, but I pulled this palette out just because the main palette that I wanted to use for today's video is not one that includes a transition shade. So this is the e.l.f. Bite Size Eyeshadow Palette. These are so pigmented and I really wanted to use this for today's look. I love the colors in this palette. This one in specific is their pumpkin pie palette, which has a lot of browns and oranges, which of course remind you of pumpkin pie. And since it's November and it's gonna be Thanksgiving at some point, I thought why not. So we are gonna use this palette mainly, but I did want to pull out that other one just for a nice transition shade. So let's go ahead and start with the chocolates. Now for transition shade, I am going to use a Likeable in the palette, which is this one right here. As you guys can see, it's not too dark in color, but it's also not too light. So I am going to use a fair amount of this just to blend in my crease. Again, this just serves as a transition shade, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Although we cannot see that shadow on my lid, it's definitely there. Now, before we jump into the main palette, I do want to grab one more shadow called Adventurous, which is this one right here. And I want to take a little bit of that and just blend it in the crease, trying to kind of map out the eyeshadow and kind of get this look started. So now that we have that, now let's jump into the e.l.f. palette, and I'm gonna take the lightest shade of brown, which is this one over here. Now, unfortunately, this palette does not have shade names, so I can't give you guys a name, but I can point it out for you. And I'm just flicking this on the outer corner of the eye, and then I'll slowly, start to buff this shadow in the crease and really build up the brown tones of the eyeshadow. I like to do this a lot with my shadows, if you guys have noticed. And I really wanted to use this palette today because I just really feel like e.l.f. as a brand has really stepped up their game when it comes to their makeup and products that they sell. Like, they're very affordable, but the quality of these products are like high end. And I really wanted to kind of put a magnifying glass on that today. So as you guys can see, these shadows are fairly pigmented, but easy to blend out and just easy to work with overall. And that's what I love most in an eyeshadow palette. I want something that's gonna blend but have pigmentation and just really give me that ability to really work with the shadow, in the way that I want, instead of, something that's either A, not so pigmented, or B, is very pigmented and hard to blend out. But with these shadows and with the Profusion palette, I really do not have those issues. So now that I have all of this nice and blended out, I think I'm gonna stop there with that shadow, and I wanna dip into the second darkest brown in the palette, which is the only other matte shadow. And I'm gonna start with the same brush, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of this, and I'm going to again start on that outer corner and then slowly build my way up. And I'm gonna take it a little bit at a time, because if you take too much, then it might be, you know, too much to work with. But a little bit at a time, and you can just slowly build up and, you know, really work that shadow. So I'm just gonna focus on creating definition out here and not so much the inner part, because I don't want to close out the whole entire eye, but just really focus it on this outer corner. Sometimes it's a good idea just to go back in with that first blending brush and just go over everything, just to make sure, you know, the edges and everything else are nice and blended out. If I really wanted to, if the pigmentation was just too dark for me, or, you know, I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, I could absolutely just go back into the Profusion palette, into that first transition shade, and just use that to help lighten everything up. But for the most part, I love the pigmentation on these shadows and, you know, how it's looking. All I really want to do is just kind of clean up and blend out the outer corners and everything a little bit better. So for the eyes, I'm definitely not going to be cutting the crease. There are two shadows in this palette, and this is what they look like. So one's more orange, and then the other one's more of a brown, and I really don't know which one I want to put on. I think we should start with the brown, and so that's gonna be the one on the end over here. And I'm gonna use, not that brush, I'm gonna use a small flat brush to apply that to my lid. I'm not gonna spray my brush or anything like that. I don't think you need to with these shadows, if I'm being quite honest, but you absolutely could if that's what you chose to do. By the way, I do love that shimmer shadow there. I think I'm actually going to use the secondary one in the palette, the one that pulls a little bit more orange, and I'm going to place it in the center. But before I do that, I'm going to go back into the Profusion palette, and since it has this like chocolate brown right here that's a little bit deeper than the other ones that we were using, I'm going to apply a small amount of this shadow on the outer corner just to help deepen up the look a little bit and, you know, bring back that definition and depth. Not too much of it, just very, very little. I only dipped into the pan once, and I think that's more than enough with this shade, and I'm just flicking it inwards. So by adding the shadow, instead of it being like a dark, true, like chocolate outer corner, I think it gives a little bit more definition to the outer corner, yes, but I also think it shifted from being that dark chocolate true brown to now being more of like a reddish brown, you know, type of outer corner, and I'm definitely into that. I do like it. Either way, I would have loved it, honestly, but I really do like the, you know, addition of this shadow to the look. It didn't take away from anything. If anything, it added, you know, something extra to the look, and I do like it a lot. So now that we have that placed, I am now going to go ahead and put this shadow or palette away. And I'm gonna take the other shimmer in the palette, which is the more orange one right here. And I think for this, I'm going to use the same brush, just the opposite side. And I'm gonna just tap this in the center. So I think for me, this just, I don't know, it adds a little something, it gives a little something extra to the look without being too much of something extra. And to me, I don't know, I like that. I like mixing shimmers and, you know, even matte shadows. In my opinion, the more colors or shades that you mix, the better the eyeshadow look. I don't know. That's just what I feel. So that's just my personal opinion, but you guys can let me know what you guys think down below. So now that everything is done, I think it looks really nice, but I'm itching just to add a little bit of liner. Now, instead of going in with like a liquid liner or anything like that, I am just gonna use shadow from the Profusion palette. So there's this shadow in the palette called VIP, which is up here. It's pretty dark. It looks like a black to me. And it does have a little bit of shimmer on it, but I'm not concerned. I don't think it's too much to where it's gonna actually show up shimmery on the lid, but we will find out. So I'm going to take a little bit of this on an angled brush. This is just my brow brush. And I'm going to basically create a line from my inner corner to my outer corner as if I were lining my lid. And then I'm just going to focus on smoking out the outer part of that line and see what that does to this look. So for me personally, I feel like it went from being a simple, you know, still glam but simple eye look to something a little bit more multi-dimensional and smoky, and I'm all here for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing to the other eye. I'm also gonna pop on some mascara and lashes. Now for mascara, I am going to be using this one right here. This is the Maybelline New York Lash Discovery mascara. Now this one in specific is not one that I'm crazy about for my top lashes, but I do love it for my bottom lashes. However, I do not own any other mascara that's under $10. I do have the L'Oreal Telescopic, which you guys know I love, and some places they do have it for under $10, but for the common places where most people shop, it's definitely not $10, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to stay in the safe zone and just use this one, which it really doesn't matter because I'm putting on false lashes anyways, but yeah. So I'm going to do all of that, and then we can come back and finish out with the base makeup. So I popped on lashes, and the ones I used are the Colourpop ones. These ones are in the style MINX. Now I will have the price point of these lashes on the screen just like I have everything else. I hope and pray they are $10 or less. I'm pretty sure they are. If I give a price, I would say they were about $8. But honestly speaking, those are the only like drugstore affordable lashes I have right now in my collection. It's been a minute since I bought some false lashes. Definitely need to re-up, but drugstore is where it's at when it comes to falsies. Now moving on to the base makeup, we are going to start with primer. I'm going to use two different ones, both from e.l.f. So I have here the Jelly Pop Dew Primer, and then I also have their Poreless Putty Primer. This one is the original. It's not the mattifying or the glowy one I believe they have. I don't know, but it's the original one. The one they initially came out with. That formula is one that I love, and I didn't see the need to go out and get any of the other ones. So I'm going to start off with the Jelly Pop, and I'm just going to put this everywhere. This again is a dupe for the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip. I'm pretty sure we all know that at this point, but it definitely gives like that semi-tacky base for you to start with, and for your makeup just to apply nice and evenly to, you know, your skin. A little bit of this definitely goes a long way. I only used 2 pumps. So now that I have that on there, I'm gonna go ahead and use the Poreless Putty for the center of my face, you know, where I have pores and all that other good stuff. And then we should be ready to jump into foundation. So before we get into foundation, there is one more thing I want to use, and this is the Wet n Wild 3-in-1 Cucumber Spray. So you can prep your face with it, set your face with it, and also refresh your face with this product. I do like this a lot, so I am going to spray my face with this. So as all of those products sink into our skin, let's talk a little bit about the foundation that I'm going to be using today. Now this one sets me all the way back to when I first started my channel. It's probably one of the few foundations that I did use when I first started in makeup. And at the time, I did love it, but you know, thinking back, I didn't really know much about makeup back then. So I definitely want to try it today and see, you know, how I feel about it. But we're going to go ahead and use the Milani Conceal and Perfect foundation. Now this is supposed to be a foundation and a concealer in one. And from what I remember, it is of a thicker consistency. So I'm going to pop a little bit of this on. This is in the shade 06, which is Sand Beige. And I normally don't get beige shades, but the shade range was a little tricky, so hopefully this, you know, will work. So using my IT Cosmetics Duo brush, I'm just gonna take the smaller side and just apply the product first with this brush. And oh, she thick. Yes, so we're just gonna apply this like this to start, and then I'll use my sponge to just blend everything out. But I really want to take my time with adding this product on because I don't want to put too much. And I'm just going to use my Morphe sponge and just start tapping this into the skin. I think the color match is okay. I did pretty good, honestly. I was actually going to get a shade darker than this, and this is probably the only product that isn't, you know, like already have been in my collection. I have used it before, but that was a long time ago, and of course I didn't just have it sitting in my drawer. I wouldn't be able to use it, so I definitely wanted to make it a point to go and get this, just because, to be honest with you guys, I do not have very many, you know, foundations left in my collection, and let alone under $10 or $10 at the max. So I definitely needed to go out and get something. And I thought this would be the perfect foundation to get, just because it's something I'm familiar with. Even though I haven't used it in a while, I'm still pretty familiar with this product. And again, like I said, I loved it then, and I just don't know how I feel about it now. So now that the foundation has been applied, I can't say that I'm loving it. It's definitely more of a dewier finish of a foundation, which we can just, you know, fix with some powder and all of that. But let's go ahead and apply our concealer and see if we can, you know, get this looking like something, because right now I'm honestly not loving it, and I do not see what I liked about it before. But I'm gonna use the e.l.f. Camo Concealer. This one is in Tan Sand, and I'm just gonna apply this in my usual areas. I really love this concealer. A little bit of it definitely goes a long way. And I know you guys are probably looking at me right now like, girl, that is not a little bit. And I know, but it definitely does go a very long way. So I am just gonna go ahead and use the same sponge just to blend this all out. Sometimes I'll let this concealer sit because it's good for that. I feel like if you let concealer sit a little bit and then blend it out, it definitely gives you fuller coverage. Like, you get better coverage with the concealer. But for this one, you really don't have to wait because the coverage is definitely there regardless of anything. So I'm just gonna focus on blending this all out. So I'm gonna use the Milani Conceal and Perfect Concealer. This one is in the shade Warm Almond, and I'm gonna use this to cream contour, because any glam look to me definitely includes cream contouring. And honestly, I'm kind of loving it for an everyday look as well, but it's not necessary. It's not an essential step when it comes to everyday makeup, but for glam, me personally, I just love to cream contour. And this is a product I definitely like, at least for cream contour. I don't really know as far as concealer, and I was gonna, you know, get this one in the shade for my under eyes, but I didn't want it to be too much Milani because there is a lot of variation in the drugstore, and I kind of wanted to, you know, show you guys that in today's video as well. So I'm just gonna use this for my cream contour as I always do. And it's just so pretty and beautiful. I'm really obsessed with the way that this blends out and how effortless it is to blend out. And I've just been enjoying it for my cream contour. So I've always used that product with a sponge. Today I decided to use a brush, and I only applied the product on my forehead and then blended it out towards my cheekbones. And I like that aspect. You know, using a brush, the product tends to stick better versus a sponge. It kind of soaks up some of that product, which also makes it easier to blend out. But I don't find with a sponge that I could, you know, expand the product around my face like that. So using a brush is definitely helpful to use less product as well. So that's just kind of like a little tidbit, you know, something that I personally just discovered right now, because again, as you guys know, I've always used a sponge, and today I just wanted to kind of switch it up and use a brush. But I was able to really spread that product, you know, around my face without having to use more. So now that we have all of the cream products out of the way, we can move into our powder products finally. So we are gonna set our T-zone and the rest of our face. And I pulled out two different powders today. Both of them are $10 and under. So the first one is the Maybelline Fit Me powder. This is in the shade light medium, and I also have the medium shade as well. But being honest, the light medium is what I've been using the most of. I bought the medium shade for my, you know, more tanner moments, but this past summer I really didn't get any color, so it's pretty much been sitting there. However, I do love the light medium shade, and then the Wet n Wild Photofocus translucent powder, which blurs the skin so elegantly and beautifully. This is a holy grail for me, so I also pulled this one out as well. I think I'll use the Maybelline in the T-zone area to start. So we are going to start with this powder first, and this is just what it looks like. I am going to take this Real Techniques, this is their setting brush, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of this powder to lightly set underneath, you know, my eyes and everything to start. I don't want to use too much powder, so this is just going to help give me a more precise application and to ensure that I'm not using too much powder. But I definitely want to make sure that I'm setting my face completely, especially since that foundation we used was not matte at all and was a little bit more dewier and thicker on top of that. So before I wipe any excess product away, I'm gonna go into the Wet n Wild loose setting powder. Again, this gives a nice blurred effect to this skin, which I love, but I am gonna use my sponge for this one in particular. And I'm gonna use this just to set the rest of my face. And I'm also gonna go on top of that other powder that we used. And just make sure everything is just nice, set, and matte. Before we go any further, now is a good time to really lock down our makeup, especially since we applied so much powder. Even though I want that matte look, I still want everything to like sink and seep into the skin very nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the e.l.f. This is the Stay All Night Microfine Setting Mist. Now, to be honest, I have not used this since the video that I originally used it in, but I did like it, so I am gonna use it today just to set everything down. You do have to shake it. And then, there we go. Whoa, okay, what's happening? The mist on this is being a little weird. I'm not a huge fan right now of this setting spray from e.l.f. It just was not spraying right. And so I went and got the Colourpop. This is the Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Setting Mist, which you guys know I'm obsessed with. And if this like original size bottle is not $10 or less, then they definitely have a mini version of this setting spray for less than $10. So you guys are just gonna have to forgive me because I need something. Let's talk about bronzer now. I'm gonna go ahead and use the Sunset Striptease bronzer from Wet n Wild. And this product does not cost a lot. Like, it's very, very affordable. And for its price point, it's very pigmented. So I do love this one, and I'm just going to use this just to add more color back into our skin. Although we did that cream contour, I'm still gonna bronze my skin because it's a must for me. And again, this is very pigmented for the price point, but it's not like really dark, which I love. It just really gives that nice warm bronzy look to the skin, which is why I enjoy using it. And although I have not pulled it out in some time, I'm kind of glad I pulled it out today because it looks really good. All right, so now let's talk about blush. I did pull 2 different blushes because I wasn't unsure which one I was gonna go with, but I do know now. So I am gonna use the e.l.f. Primer Infused blush, which is one of their newest additions to their line. This one is in Always Cheeky, and I love the pigmentation on this blush. It's one dip is good enough. Now, I did also pull out Burt's Bees blush, and this one is in the shade Toasted Cinnamon, which I think is perfect for fall, and I would love to use this, especially because of the eyes. You know what? We're gonna go ahead and use a little bit of this. So I'm gonna use this one. It is very affordable. You can find it. I know they sell Burt's Bees like makeup products and like Whole Foods and stuff like that, but I'm gonna take a little bit of this and just press that up here. It's just like really neutral, and I'm just here for it. So I went ahead and added a little bit of Always Cheeky on top of the other one. I actually really like how that looks. I've been liking mixing, you know, my blushes together. I guess it's the same concept if you had like a blush palette and you wanted to just cross mix them. It's the same concept. So I took a little bit of Toasted Cinnamon and now Always Cheeky from e.l.f. and I like the way that looks. I almost forgot, but we definitely need to finish off the under eye area. I'm not going to be applying any highlight, so let me just say that. If you wanted to, you can definitely go in with any highlighter of your choice. But for today's look, I don't feel like I need any. I am going to go ahead and grab the e.l.f. palette, and I'm going to grab both the matte shades in the palette. And I'm just going to smudge and smoke them on my lower lash line. Literally just drag these across and kind of complete the look that way. That way everything comes full circle and it looks complete and finished. I am going to use the same mascara for my lower lash line, which is the Maybelline Lash Discovery mascara, and I'm just going to run this on my lower lashes. For my waterline, I am going to go ahead and use my LA Perfect Precision Lip Liner in the shade Nude just to line the waterline. I want something that's going to open up my eye, make it bright. If you wanted something more smoky, you could definitely opt for a brown eyeliner, but this is what I like. So I'm just going to pop this in. All right, beauties, that is it. That wraps up today's video using nothing over $10. Now, I do want to say really quickly, because I'm sure somebody's going to be wondering, the gloss on my lips is this right here. This is the Essence Shine 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 lip gloss, which is very affordable. It is much like the Fenty gloss bombs, just at a cheaper price point, and I absolutely love it. So you should definitely go get your hands on this if you love the Fenty gloss bombs. Now, with all of that, I do want to say I tried to pick the best of the best for today's video, but it did make me realize how little I had in my collection under $10. Like, that price point was very rare and very far in between when it comes to my products that I have in my collection, which is pretty eye-opening. Now, when it comes to the foundation, although I have used it in the past and I loved it back then, but as I said in the beginning, looking back, I didn't know much about makeup, and now where I stand today, I don't really care for it, to be honest. Like, I'm just gonna be straight up real with you guys. I do not care for it. Although I feel like the look came out very nicely at, you know, the finished result, obviously. The foundation on its own just, first of all, did not provide that coverage. It's thick, but thick for what? Because the coverage is not there. Also, I don't like the finish of it, and I just don't like the way it sits on the skin. So that's a hard pass for me, and that definitely will be going back to the store. But overall, I enjoyed everything. Again, these are the products that I felt were the best in my collection. I hope I proved that to you guys today. Let me know down below what products you are loving that are $10 and under. And with all of that, I am going to close out today's video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys in my next upload.